The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the empty darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and served as the meeting place for the most powerful species in the galaxy. Today was another monthly gathering of the Galactic Council, where 12 different alien races came together to discuss important matters. The main conference room was enormous. A crystal table stretched across the center, surrounded by chairs and platforms designed for different types of alien bodies. The walls were made of clear metal that showed the stars outside, making everyone feel like they were floating in space itself. One by one, the alien representatives entered the room. The Vorthak delegation walked in first. They looked like giant insects with hard shells covering their bodies. Their leader, Ambassador Clickstar, made clicking sounds as he moved. His 6 legs carried him smoothly across the floor, and his large black eyes reflected the light from above. Next came the Quilnari. These beings had no solid bodies at all. They looked like glowing clouds of gas floating inside special containers that kept them together. Their representative, Zixthera, drifted into position near the table. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind blowing through metal pipes. The Thexans arrived with heavy footsteps. They were large, reptile-like creatures with thick green skin and sharp teeth. Commander Velox wore a military uniform covered in medals and badges. His yellow eyes looked around the room as if he was searching for enemies to fight. Other species followed. The Gelridians looked like living crystals that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. The Narradins needed special suits filled with water because they lived in oceans on their home planets. Each group found their place around the Great Table. At the far end of the table, almost forgotten in a corner, sat the human representative. His name was Kang Day, and compared to all the exotic aliens around him, he looked very ordinary. He was not very tall or strong. His skin was a normal human color, and his hair was black and neat. He wore simple clothes that were clean, but not fancy. Kang Day had been coming to these meetings for 5 years now, ever since humanity had been allowed to join the Galactic Council. His people controlled only a few small planets on the edge of the galaxy, far from the important trade routes and rich systems that the other species fought over. While the other representatives talked loudly and made grand gestures, Kang Day sat quietly and wrote notes on a simple electronic pad. He never interrupted the discussions or demanded attention. Most of the time, the other delegates seemed to forget he was even there. The Helix Nebula belongs to the Vorthak Empire. Now, announced Ambassador Clickstar, his voice making sharp clicking sounds. We have the strongest military in this sector. No one can challenge our right to claim these systems. Several other representatives began talking at once. Some agreed with the Vorthak claim, while others protested. The Thexan commander Velox slammed his fist on the table, making a loud bang that echoed through the room. The Thexan Empire objects to this expansion, Velox growled, showing his sharp teeth. Those systems should be open to all council members, for development. High Chancellor Moxara of the Gelridians sparkled as she spoke. Her crystal body changed colors from blue to red as she became more excited. The Gelridian Confederation suggests a peaceful solution. Perhaps we can divide the territory equally among interested parties. The arguing continued for almost an hour. Each species wanted something different, and none of them wanted to give up anything. Trade agreements were discussed and rejected. Military threats were made and answered with counter-threats. Through it all, Kang Day continued writing in his notebook, his face showing no emotion at all. Fleet Master Kel Noth of the Narradins made wet, bubbling sounds through his breathing mask. The aquatic worlds in that region should be reserved for species that can actually use them properly, he said, clearly meaning his own people. Every species here thinks they deserve special treatment, complained Zixthera, her gaseous form, swirling with annoyance. Meanwhile, the real issues facing our galaxy go unaddressed. Commander Velox looked around the room with his cold yellow eyes. When his gaze fell on Kang Day, he let out a harsh laugh. At least we all contribute to these discussions, he said mockingly. The humans sit there like silent statues. Perhaps they have nothing valuable to say about matters of real importance. Several other delegates chuckled at this comment. It was true that humanity had the smallest military force of any council member. Their few ships were old and outdated compared to the mighty fleets of the other species. Most aliens saw humans as harmless and somewhat backward. Ambassador Clickstar's insect-like head turned toward Kang Day. "Yes, the quiet humans," he clicked. "Always watching, never acting. Their tiny fleet would not last 5 minutes against any real military power." Kang Day looked up from his notes for just a moment. His dark eyes met Commander Velox's stare calmly and steadily. There was no anger in his expression, no embarrassment at being mocked. He simply looked at the reptilian commander for a few seconds, then returned to his writing as if nothing had happened. "Perhaps the humans are too afraid to speak," suggested Zixathara, her voice carrying an amused tone. "Their species is still very young compared to the rest of us. They probably do not understand the complex issues we discuss here." More laughter rippled around the table. The aliens enjoyed making fun of the quiet human who never fought back or defended his people. It had become a regular source of entertainment during their long meetings. High Chancellor Moxara tried to bring order back to the discussion. "Let us return to the matter of the Helix Nebula," she said, her crystal body flashing bright blue. "We need to reach an agreement before the next trade season begins." The debate continued for another 2 hours. Maps were displayed showing the disputed systems. Economic reports were shared and argued over. Military capabilities were compared and threatened. Through it all, the various species formed temporary alliances and broke them just as quickly. Finally, Ambassador Clickstar stood up, his hard shell gleaming under the lights. "The Vorthak Empire has made its position clear," he announced. "We will begin moving our fleets into the Helix systems within the next month. Any species that wishes to challenge us is welcome to try." This statement caused an uproar. Several delegates began shouting at once. Commander Velox rose to his feet, his hand moving toward the weapon at his side. Fleetmaster Kelnoth made angry bubbling sounds, and his breathing mask fogged up with his excitement. "Order! Order!" called High Chancellor Moxara, her crystal, form flashing red and yellow. "We are civilized beings here. Violence is not the answer to our disagreements." Gradually, the room became quiet again. The various representatives returned to their seats, but tension filled the air like electricity before a storm. Everyone could see that the meeting was about to end without any real agreements being reached. As the formal session concluded, the alien delegates began filing out of the conference room. They formed small groups, whispering and making private deals with each other. Some looked angry, others seemed pleased with how things had gone. Kang Day remained in his seat until the room was almost empty. He carefully closed his notebook and put his writing tools away in a small case. His movements were slow and deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. Just before leaving, he activated a small communication device hidden in his jacket. The message he sent was very short, just a few words transmitted on a frequency that no other species in the galaxy even knew existed. "Phase 1 complete," he said quietly. "They still do not see us as a threat." Then Kang Day walked out of the conference room looking exactly like what everyone believed him to be, a quiet, harmless representative of an unimportant species. Behind him, the empty room held only silence and the fading echoes of alien laughter. 3 months had passed since the meeting at Nexus Prime, and Dr. Min Hai was starting to see something that worried her very much. She worked in a small office on Earth's main orbital defense station, high above the blue and white planet that was humanity's home world. Her job was to study information about other species and look for patterns that might be dangerous. The office was cramped and filled with computer screens showing star maps, shipping routes, and military reports from across the galaxy. Charts and graphs covered every wall, connected by colored strings that showed relationships between different pieces of information. To most people, it would look like organized chaos, but to Min Hai, it told a clear and frightening story. She was staring at her main display screen when her colleague Park Jun entered the room. He carried a stack of data storage devices containing the latest intelligence reports from human agents scattered throughout Council space. Park Jun was younger than Min Hai and had only been working in strategic analysis for 2 years, but he was very good at spotting important details in large amounts of information. "The new reports just came in from the outer systems," Park Jun said, setting the devices down on Min Hai's desk. I think you're going to want to see these right away. Min Hai inserted the first device into her computer and began reviewing the data. Her frown deepened as she read through report after report. This confirms what I've been tracking, she said, highlighting certain sections on her screen. Look at these coordinates carefully. She brought up a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with thousands of star systems represented as glowing dots. Certain systems were marked in red, showing recent Vorthak military activity. As Park Jun watched, Min Hai connected the red dots, with lines revealing a pattern that sent chills down his spine. The Vorthak expansion isn't random at all, Min Hai explained, her voice tense with concern. They're not just grabbing territory because they can. Every single system they've claimed has very specific characteristics. Park Jun leaned closer to study the display. What kind of characteristics? Min Hai switched to a different view that showed the chemical composition of stars and planets in the targeted systems. High concentrations of rare metals used in advanced ship construction. Gas giants with the exact atmospheric mixtures needed for their most powerful weapons. Asteroid fields rich in materials for quantum drive cores. That's not expansion, Park Jun said quietly. That's preparation. Exactly. Min Hai called up another screen showing economic projections. I've been running calculations based on their current rate of resource extraction. If they continue gathering materials at this pace, they'll have enough raw resources to build a fleet 3 times larger than anything the galaxy has ever seen. The numbers on the screen were staggering. The Vorthak were not just collecting enough materials to defend their territory or even to conquer a few neighboring systems. They were gathering resources on a scale that could only mean one thing: total galactic domination. Park Jun pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. How long do we have? Based on their construction capabilities and the resources they've already gathered, I estimate they could complete their fleet buildup in about 6 months. Min Hai paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. But that's not the worst part. She brought up a new display showing Vorthak fleet movements over the past few weeks. Red arrows indicated the direction and speed of their military ships as they moved through space. The pattern was even more disturbing than the resource gathering. They're positioning their existing fleets for simultaneous strikes, Min Hai continued. Look at these staging areas. They're moving ships into positions where they could attack multiple council species at the same time. Park Jun studied the tactical display with growing alarm. They could hit the Gelridian home systems, the Narration colonies, and the Thexon military bases all at once. No single species would have time to help the others. And by the time any survivors could organize a counterattack, the Vorthak would have their new superfleet ready to finish the job. Min Hai leaned back in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes. It's actually a brilliant strategy. Evil but brilliant. We have to present this to the council immediately, Park Jun said, already reaching for the communication controls. Min Hai shook her head sadly. We already tried. Remember the preliminary report I sent to Ambassador Kang Day last month? She brought up the official response from the Galactic Council on her screen. The message was short and dismissive. Human concerns have been noted and reviewed. The Council finds insufficient evidence of hostile intent in normal Vorthak military and economic activities. This matter is considered closed pending new evidence of imminent threat. They don't believe us, Park Jun said in frustration. They think we're being paranoid. Worse than that, Min Hai replied. They think we're trying to cause trouble because we're jealous of the Vorthak's success. Several council members have suggested that humanity is still bitter about being the newest and weakest member of the Alliance. Meanwhile, in the deep darkness of space far from any inhabited system, Captain Li Min commanded the human scout ship Steady Hand on its regular patrol route. The ship was old but well-maintained, with upgraded sensor arrays that could detect activities across several light-years of space. Li Min had been patrolling the borders of human territory for 15 years, and he knew how to read the subtle signs that most people would miss. The Steady Hand was much smaller than the mighty warships of other species, but it was fast and quiet. More importantly, it carried some of the most advanced listening equipment in the galaxy, though most aliens didn't know that. To them, it looked like just another outdated human vessel doing routine border patrol. On the ship's bridge, communications. Officer Yom Sil sat at her station, surrounded by multiple screens showing different types of sensor data. She had been monitoring long-range communications for 3 days straight, catching fragments of messages that were being transmitted between Vorthak ships and bases. Most of the transmissions were heavily encrypted, but Yom-Sil was very good at her job. She had spent years learning how Vorthak communication systems worked, and she had developed techniques for breaking their security codes that even her own superiors didn't fully understand. "Captain," she called out suddenly, her voice tight with concern. "I'm detecting massive fleet movements in Vorthak space. This is much bigger than anything we've seen before." Li Min left his command chair and walked over to Yom-Sil's station. The screens showed dozens of red dots moving through space, each one representing a Vorthak warship. But what made the display truly frightening was the sheer number of vessels involved. "How many ships are we looking at?" Li Min asked. Yom-Sil checked her calculations twice before answering. "At least 300 major warships, sir. Probably more that are too far away for our sensors to detect clearly. They're all converging on staging areas throughout Vorthak territory." Li Min studied the movement patterns carefully. He had fought in several small border conflicts during his career, and he recognized the signs of a major military operation being prepared. This isn't defensive positioning. They're getting ready to attack something. That's what I thought. "Two, sir." Yom-Sil brought up another screen showing projected courses and timing. "Based on their current speed and direction, I estimate they'll reach optimal attack positions in about 6 weeks." "Attack positions for what target?" "That's the scary part, Captain. They're not aiming for one target. The fleet groups are spreading out to hit multiple systems simultaneously." Yom-Sil's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "This looks like preparation for a galactic war." Li Min felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He had hoped that Min Hai's analysis was wrong, that the Vorthak expansion was just normal territorial growth. But the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. "Send an encrypted message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Priority 1 security level. Include all sensor data and our tactical analysis." "Yes, sir." Yom-Sil's fingers flew over her controls as she prepared the transmission. "Should I also alert the other human scout ships in this sector?" "Negative. We don't want to risk revealing our surveillance capabilities. Send the data through normal channels, but mark it for immediate review by strategic analysis." As the message raced through space toward Earth, Li Min continued studying the Vorthak fleet movements. Every instinct he had developed during his years of military service was screaming that war was coming. The only question was whether anyone would listen to the warnings in time to do something about it. Back on Earth, the message from the steady hand arrived at Strategic Analysis Headquarters within a few hours. Min Hai and Park Jun read through the report with growing dread because it confirmed their worst fears about Vorthak intentions. "We have to try again," Park Jun said desperately. "Surely when the Council sees this direct evidence of military buildup, they'll have to take action." Min Hai was already preparing another report, but her expression was grim. "We can try, but I doubt it will make any difference. The other species have convinced themselves that humans are just troublemakers looking for attention." "Then what do we do?" Min Hai looked out through the transparent walls of the space station at the blue Earth spinning slowly below. "We prepare." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was not going well for Ambassador Kang Day. He stood at the center of the great conference room on Nexus Prime, surrounded by the same alien representatives who had mocked humanity just months before. This time, however, they were not laughing. They were angry and impatient. "This is highly irregular," complained High Chancellor Moxara, her crystal body flashing with irritated red patterns. "Emergency sessions are only called for matters of immediate galactic importance. Human paranoia does not qualify as such a matter." Kang Day remained calm despite the hostile atmosphere. He had requested this meeting after receiving the latest intelligence reports from Earth, and he knew that what he had to share could save millions of lives. The problem was getting the other council members to listen long enough to understand the danger. "Honored representatives," Kang Day began, his voice steady and respectful, "I have new evidence that the Vorthak Empire is preparing for large-scale military action against multiple council species." Commander Velox of the Thexans let out a harsh laugh that echoed through the chamber. "More human fears and wild theories. The Vorthak are our allies and trading partners. This obsession with conspiracy theories makes your species look foolish." The Quilnari representative, Zix Thara, floated in her containment field with obvious annoyance. Her gaseous form swirled in agitated patterns as she spoke. We have important trade negotiations to conclude today. These constant interruptions waste valuable time that could be spent on real diplomatic work. Kang Day activated his portable display unit and projected a three-dimensional map into the center of the room. The holographic image showed Vorthak fleet movements over the past several weeks, with red arrows indicating the direction and speed of their ships. This is direct sensor data collected by our patrol vessels, Kang Day explained. The Vorthak have moved over 400 warships into attack positions around key council systems. They are clearly preparing for coordinated strikes against multiple targets. Fleetmaster Kel Noth of the Nereidans made wet, bubbling sounds through his breathing apparatus. Attack positions? Those look like normal fleet exercises to me. Every species conducts military training in their own territory. The scale is unprecedented, Kang Day continued patiently. Our analysis shows that the Vorthak have gathered enough military force to overwhelm any three council species simultaneously. Combined with their recent resource gathering in specific star systems, the pattern clearly indicates preparation for major warfare. He changed the display to show mineral extraction data and construction activities throughout Vorthak space. The numbers were staggering, but the alien representatives seemed unimpressed by the evidence. Ambassador Clickstar of the Vorthak Empire appeared as a holographic projection, claiming that pressing matters at his homeworld prevented him from attending in person. His insect-like form clicked and chittered as he spoke through the translation system. The humans make serious accusations without proof, Clickstar said, his black eyes reflecting the light coldly. The Vorthak Empire conducts legitimate military exercises and economic development within our own territory. We do not need permission from humans to defend our interests. Several other representatives nodded in agreement. The general mood in the room was one of irritation rather than concern. Most of the council members had already decided that the humans were being dramatic and paranoid. Kang Day tried a different approach. If I may present the mathematical projections clearly, honored representatives, based on current Vorthak ship production rates and resource acquisition, they will possess sufficient military power to threaten the entire galactic balance within 6 weeks. Mathematics, interrupted Fleetmaster Kel Noth, with a dismissive gesture that sent water droplets flying from his suit. Humans always trust numbers over wisdom and experience. The galaxy has maintained peace for over 2 centuries through understanding and cooperation, not suspicion and fear. High Chancellor Moxara's crystal form sparkled with authority as she addressed the assembly. The Galactic Council has reviewed human concerns on multiple occasions. We find them premature and based on speculation, rather than concrete evidence of hostile intent. The Vorthak have every right to develop their military capabilities as they see fit, added Commander Velox, his reptilian eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Just because humans feel threatened by superior military power does not mean the rest of us should share their fears. Kang Day felt frustration building inside him, but his expression remained calm and professional. With respect, Commander Velox, the evidence suggests that Vorthak capabilities will soon exceed defensive needs by a factor of 10 to 1. This level of military buildup serves no purpose except aggressive expansion. Zixthara's gaseous form pulsed with impatience. Perhaps the humans are jealous of Vorthak's success. Your species has the smallest fleet and weakest economy in the Council. It must be difficult to watch other species prosper while you struggle to maintain relevance. The comment stung because it contained enough truth to be believable. Humanity was indeed the newest and least powerful member of the Galactic Council. Their military consisted of a few dozen outdated ships, and their economy was tiny compared to the vast trade networks of older species. This is not about human concerns, Kang Day replied firmly. This is about the security of all Council species. The Vorthak fleet buildup threatens everyone equally. Threats require intent, stated Ambassador Clickstar through his holographic projection. The Vorthak Empire has shown no hostile intent toward any Council member. We seek only to protect our legitimate interests and maintain our rightful place among the galactic powers. The session continued for another hour, with Kang Day presenting increasingly detailed evidence while the other representatives found new ways to dismiss his warnings. Trade agreements were more important than military preparations. Economic development was more valuable than security concerns. Human paranoia was more dangerous than Vorthak expansion. Finally, High Chancellor Moxara called for a formal vote on the human motion for increased security measures. The result was predictable. 11 species voted against the motion, with only humanity supporting it. The rejection was unanimous among the non-human council members. "The matter is settled," Moxara announced, her crystal body flashing with finality. "Human concerns have been noted and reviewed by the full council. We find insufficient evidence to support claims of Vorthak aggression or threats to galactic security." As the representatives began filing out of the chamber, several stopped to exchange knowing looks and quiet comments. The general consensus was that humanity had once again embarrassed itself with wild theories and unfounded fears. Commander Velox paused near Kang Day's position, his yellow eyes gleaming with amusement. "Perhaps humans should focus on improving their own pathetic military instead of inventing threats from their betters," he said loudly enough for others to hear. Fleetmaster Kel Noth made wet laughing sounds as he passed. "At least the entertainment value is consistent. Human panic provides reliable comedy relief during these long diplomatic sessions." Even Ambassador Clixtar seemed amused as his holographic form prepared to disconnect. "The Vorthak Empire appreciates human concern for galactic security. We will be sure to consider your warnings when we plan our next fleet exercises." The alien laughter followed Kang Day as the chamber emptied, leaving him alone with his display screens and rejected evidence. He stood quietly for several minutes, reviewing the data one more time to make sure he had not missed anything important. The facts were clear and undeniable. The Vorthak were preparing for war on a massive scale. They had positioned their fleets for simultaneous strikes against multiple targets. They had gathered enough resources to build an unstoppable armada. The attack would come within weeks, possibly days, and no one believed him. Kang Day carefully packed away his display equipment and data storage devices. His movements were slow and deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. To any observer, he would look like a disappointed diplomat accepting defeat gracefully. But as he prepared to leave the empty chamber, Kang Day activated a small communication device hidden in his jacket pocket. The message he transmitted was brief and coded, sent on a frequency that no other species in the galaxy knew existed. "Council rejection confirmed," he said quietly into the device. "All diplomatic options exhausted. Authorization requested for Contingency Protocol 7. The response came back immediately, transmitted from somewhere deep in human space where Earth's most secret military installations lay hidden from alien sensors. "Protocol 7 authorized," came the reply. "Begin immediate implementation. The Galaxy will learn to listen." Kang Day smiled for the first time in months as he walked out of the conference room. Behind him, the empty chamber held only silence and the fading echoes of alien laughter. Soon, that laughter would be replaced by something else entirely. The quiet humans were about to become very loud indeed. While the galaxy continued its normal activities, believing that peace was secure and humans were harmless, something extraordinary was happening in the hidden depths of human space. On Luna Base, built deep inside the craters and tunnels of Earth's moon, Admiral Cho Han stood in a control room that officially did not exist. The chamber was enormous, carved out of solid rock and lined with advanced technology that no alien species had ever seen. Hundreds of technicians worked at control stations, monitoring displays that showed activities across 17 different star systems. These were not the backward human territories that the Galactic Council knew about. These were secret installations that had been built over the past 20 years, hidden from alien sensors by technology that made them completely invisible. Status report on production facilities, Admiral Cho Han requested from his command platform overlooking the main floor. Chief, Engineer Kim Sol approached with a datapad in her hands. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She had spent her entire career developing weapons and ships that the galaxy believed were impossible for humans to create. "All 17 hidden shipyards are now fully operational, Admiral," Kim Sol reported. "The first batch of new vessels will be ready for deployment in 3 weeks. The second batch will follow 2 weeks after that." "How many ships total?" 800 vessels in the first wave, sir, each one equipped with our latest stealth technology and quantum disruption weapons. The alien ships won't even see them coming." Admiral Cho Han nodded with satisfaction. "These were not the outdated primitive ships that humanity showed to the Galactic Council. These vessels incorporated technologies that had been developed in complete secrecy, using scientific principles that most alien species had never even discovered. The stealth systems made human ships completely invisible to all known sensor types. The quantum disruption weapons could destroy enemy vessels without leaving any trace of wreckage. Most importantly, the ships were designed to work together as a single unified force, controlled by artificial intelligence networks that could coordinate thousands of vessels with split-second precision. "What about the special materials?" Chauhan asked. "Manufacturing is proceeding on schedule. We have enough exotic matter to outfit the entire first-wave fleet. The quantum entanglement communication arrays are also ready for installation." Kim Sol's report contained information that would have shocked the alien members of the Galactic Council. While they had been dismissing humanity as primitive and backward, human scientists had been making breakthrough discoveries in advanced physics and engineering. The gap between what aliens thought humans could do and what humans actually could do was enormous. In another part of Luna Base, Colonel Bei Wan coordinated with human agents scattered throughout Council space. These were not official diplomats or registered citizens. They were sleeper agents who had been living quietly in alien territories for years, working as traders, mechanics, technicians, and data analysts. To the aliens around them, they seemed like ordinary humans trying to make a living in the wider galaxy. In reality, they were highly trained intelligence operatives who had been mapping every major military installation, fleet position, and strategic resource in Council space. "Agent Team 7 report status," Colonel Bei Wan spoke into his secure communication system. "Position confirmed on Vorthak Staging Area Alpha," came the reply from an agent who had been working as a maintenance technician on a space station for 3 years. "Fleet strength is 347 ships, including 12 super dreadnoughts. They're loading quantum disruptor torpedoes and preparing for immediate deployment." "Agent Team 12, what's your situation?" "Narration defense grid. Mapping is complete," reported another agent who had been employed as a water system engineer on the aquatic species homeworld. "Primary shield generators are located at coordinates transmitted yesterday. Estimated time to disable entire defensive network, 45 minutes. Similar reports came in from agents positioned throughout the galaxy. Every major military installation had been studied and mapped. Every fleet movement was being monitored in real time. Every defensive system had been analyzed for weaknesses. The aliens had never suspected that the quiet, harmless humans working among them were actually gathering detailed intelligence about their most sensitive military secrets. It was the greatest intelligence operation in galactic history, and it had been conducted right under the noses of species who believed themselves superior to humanity. On Earth's surface, in a research facility hidden beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, Dr. Ryu Na worked on humanity's most closely guarded secret. She was the lead developer of the Collective Tactical Network, an artificial intelligence system that could coordinate military operations across vast distances with perfect efficiency. "Network stability test complete," Dr. Ryu Na reported to Admiral Chauhan through a secure communication link. "Response time across 50 light-years is now under 0.3 seconds. The system can process tactical information from thousands of sources simultaneously and adjust strategies in real time. How many ships can it coordinate at once?" "Theoretical maximum is 12,000 vessels, Admiral. Practical testing shows optimal performance, with up to 8,000 ships operating as a single coordinated unit." This was something that no alien species had ever achieved. The Vorthak, Thexans, and other powerful militaries relied on individual ship commanders making independent decisions during battle. Even their best coordinated attacks involved only small numbers of vessels working together. Humans had developed something entirely different: the ability to operate thousands of ships as if they were parts of a single enormous organism. Every vessel would know instantly what every other vessel was doing. Tactical decisions could be made and implemented across an entire fleet in fractions of a second. "The quantum entanglement communication system is fully integrated," Dr. Ryu Na continued. "Orders and data can be transmitted instantly across any distance, completely immune to jamming or interception. While alien species had faster-than-light travel, they still relied on conventional communication methods that could be detected and blocked. Humans had learned to use quantum mechanics to create communication networks that operated outside normal space-time, making them impossible for aliens to even detect, much less interfere with. Admiral Cho Han reviewed the progress reports with growing satisfaction. For 20 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. While aliens laughed at human weakness and dismissed human warnings, humans had been building the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. "What about our defensive capabilities?" he asked. "Planetary defense systems are fully deployed around all major human worlds," Dr. Ryuna replied. "The new shield generators can absorb the combined firepower of an entire alien fleet without overloading. Our anti-ship weapons have a range advantage of approximately 4-to-1 over the best alien systems. And if they try to target civilian populations, evacuation protocols are in place. Every human civilian can be relocated to secure facilities within 6 hours of an attack warning. The aliens will find only empty cities if they try to target non-military installations." This was another advantage that humanity possessed over the alien species. While aliens often fought as individuals or small groups, humans had learned to work together on a massive scale. Every human civilian had been trained in emergency procedures. Every human world had hidden shelters and escape routes. The entire human population could be mobilized for war in a matter of hours. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, far from any inhabited system, Captain Oh Sung commanded one of the new human stealth ships during its final testing phase. The vessel, called Silent Dawn, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was sleek and smooth, with no visible weapons or engines. To alien sensors, it would appear to be empty space. "All systems testing nominal," reported his tactical officer. "Stealth field is maintaining perfect invisibility across all sensor frequencies. Quantum disruption weapons are charged and ready for deployment." Captain Oh Sung studied the test results with professional satisfaction. The Silent Dawn could approach any alien ship undetected and destroy it completely without leaving any trace of the attack. The enemy vessel would simply cease to exist, as if it had never been there at all. "Communications test with fleet network," Oh Sung ordered. Instantly, his ship connected to the collective tactical network, linking his consciousness directly to hundreds of other human vessels scattered throughout space. For a brief moment, he could see through the sensors of every ship, think with the combined intelligence of thousands of human minds, and act with the coordinated precision of a single enormous entity. It was an experience that no alien could understand or replicate. Where other species valued individual strength and personal glory, humans had learned to merge their individual abilities into something far greater than the sum of its parts. "Network integration successful," his communications officer reported. "Response time nominal. Ready for coordinated operations." Back on Luna Base, Admiral Cho Han received confirmation that all elements of the human military were ready for deployment. The secret shipyards had completed their first production run. The intelligence. The attack began at exactly 0347 Galactic Standard Time, just as Dr. Min Hai had predicted it would. Across 17 different star systems, massive Vorthak fleets materialized from hyperspace with perfect coordination. Their ships were enormous and threatening, with dark metal hulls covered in weapon ports and shield generators. The largest vessels were over 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The first target was the crystal world of Gelrid Prime, home to High Chancellor Moxara and 40 billion crystalline beings. The Gelridian orbital defense platforms were impressive structures that had protected the planet for over 1,000 years. They were equipped with powerful energy shields and weapons that could destroy attacking ships from millions of kilometers away. The Vorthak fleet approached with overwhelming force. 200 warships dropped out of hyperspace simultaneously, their quantum disruptor cannons already charging for the first attack. The Gelridian defenders tried to organize a response, but they were completely outnumbered and caught by surprise. "Defensive grid activating," announced Fleet Commander Lixara from the primary orbital station. "All ships move to intercept positions." The crystalline defenders fought bravely, their elegant ships dancing through space as they tried to protect their homeworld. But the Vorthak had brought too many ships and too much firepower. One by one, the Gelridian vessels were destroyed, their crystal hulls shattering into millions of beautiful fragments that reflected the light of dying explosions. Within 30 minutes, the orbital defenses were completely destroyed. The Vorthak fleet moved into bombardment position around Gelrid Prime and began systematic destruction of the planet's surface installations. Cities that had stood for millennia crumbled under the alien assault. High Chancellor Moxara's final transmission was brief and filled with shock. "This is impossible. The Vorthak are our allies. Why are they doing this?" The same scene was playing out across the galaxy. On the aquatic worlds of the Narration Confederation, Fleetmaster Kelnoth watched in horror as Vorthak thermal bombs detonated in his people's oceans. The explosions boiled entire seas, killing billions of aquatic beings in minutes. "Emergency evacuation of all underwater cities," Kelnoth ordered desperately. "Move the population to the deep shelters." But there was nowhere to run. The Vorthak had planned their attack perfectly, targeting the specific environmental systems that each species needed to survive. The thermal bombs were designed to kill aquatic life forms, making the Narration homeworlds uninhabitable for their own people. The Quilnari faced a different but equally devastating assault. Vorthak energy. Weapons disrupted the electromagnetic fields that held their gaseous forms together. Entire Quilnari communities simply dispersed into empty space, their consciousness scattered beyond any hope of recovery. Zixthara's final message was transmitted as her own form began to come apart. "We should have listened to the humans. We should have seen this coming." Even the mighty Thexan Empire, with its proud military tradition and powerful fleets, found itself helpless against the coordinated Vorthak assault. Commander Velox led his forces into battle with typical Thexan courage, but his ships were already outnumbered and outgunned. "All vessels, attack formation Delta," Velox commanded from his flagship's bridge. "Show these insects what Thexan warriors can do." The reptilian warriors fought fiercely, their ships striking hard at the Vorthak formations. For a moment, it seemed like their aggressive tactics might succeed. Several Vorthak vessels were destroyed, and their neat attack formations began to break apart. But the victory was short-lived. More Vorthak reinforcements arrived, and their quantum disruptor weapons proved devastatingly effective against Thexan armor. The proud warriors who had mocked human concerns found themselves dying in space, their ships torn apart by weapons they had never seen before. Commander Velox's last transmission was bitter with irony. "The quiet humans tried to warn us. We were too arrogant to listen." On Nexus Prime, the great space station where the Galactic Council had met just days before, panic spread through the corridors as reports of the attacks poured in. Representatives from all the major species gathered in the main conference room, but this time they were not there to discuss trade agreements or territorial disputes. 17 systems under attack simultaneously," reported the station's commander, his voice shaking with disbelief. "All major council worlds are under assault. Fleet casualties are approaching 90%. The alien representatives who had dismissed human warnings now found themselves facing the exact disaster that Ambassador Kang Day had predicted. The evidence was undeniable, displayed on screens that showed the systematic destruction of their civilizations. "Where did all these Vorthak ships come from?" demanded the surviving Gelridian representative, her crystal form flickering with stress patterns. "Our intelligence reports showed nothing like this level of military capability." "They had been building up for months," explained a Narration officer whose homeworld was already burning. "Exactly as the humans predicted. We ignored the warnings because we thought we knew better." The most shocking revelation came from long-range sensors, monitoring the battle zones. The Vorthak fleets were bypassing certain systems entirely, leaving them completely untouched while devastating everything around them. "The human territories show no signs of attack," observed a Thexan military analyst. "Every council species has been targeted except humanity." A terrible realization began to dawn on the surviving alien representatives. The Vorthak had not attacked human space because they considered humanity too weak and insignificant to be worth the effort. The species that the Council had mocked as harmless and backward had been spared simply because they were seen as irrelevant. "They ignored the humans," whispered the Quilnari delegate who had escaped the destruction of her homeworld. "Just like we did." Ambassador Kang Day sat quietly in his usual position at the end of the conference table, no longer ignored but not yet understood. His expression was calm and professional, but his eyes held a sadness that the alien representatives were only beginning to comprehend. "How long do we have?" asked the Gelridian representative desperately. "When will they finish their conquest and move on to the remaining systems?" Kang Day consulted his datapad before responding. "Based on current battle reports, organized resistance will collapse within 72 hours. After that, the Vorthak will have complete control over 11 council species and their territories." "What about your people?" demanded a surviving Thexan officer. "When will they attack human space?" "According to our intelligence analysis, the Vorthak consider humanity to be a minimal threat. They plan to deal with us after consolidating control over the major council powers." Kang Day's voice remained steady despite the magnitude of what he was saying. "Estimated time frame for attack on human territories: 6 to 8 weeks. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing desperation. Their mighty fleets were destroyed, their worlds were burning, and their only hope seemed to be the species they had spent years dismissing as weak and irrelevant. "Can your people help us?" asked the Narration officer, his pride finally broken by the reality of total defeat. "Is there anything humanity can do to stop this?" Kang Day was quiet for a long moment, as if considering the question carefully. When he finally spoke, his words were chosen with great precision. "The human government has been monitoring the situation closely. We have contingency plans for dealing with threats to galactic security." "What kind of contingency plans?" Instead of answering directly, Kang Day activated his portable communication device. The message he sent was very short, transmitted on frequencies that the aliens had never encountered before. "Council species have fallen as predicted," he said quietly into the device. "Vorthak fleets are fully committed to occupation duties. Galactic situation is ready for Phase 2 implementation." The response came back immediately. "Phase 2 authorized. Begin liberation operations immediately. Show them what humans can really do." Kang Day closed the communication device and looked up at the desperate alien faces surrounding him. The first time in years, he allowed himself to smile. "Help is coming," he said simply. "The galaxy is about to learn that quiet humans can be very loud when necessary." At that moment, every long-range sensor in the Council territories detected the same impossible reading. Thousands of ships materializing from empty space, appearing where nothing had been detected just seconds before. The alien representatives stared at their displays in shock and confusion. The sensor readings made no sense. Ships could not simply appear from nowhere. Stealth technology had limits, and no known science could hide entire fleets from all sensor types simultaneously. But the evidence was undeniable. Hundreds, then thousands of vessels were becoming visible throughout the galaxy, converging on every system where Vorthak forces were stationed. "Those are human ships," whispered the Gelridian representative, her crystal form sparkling with amazement. "But how is this possible? Human technology is supposed to be primitive." Kang Day's smile grew wider as he watched the sensor displays. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "the galaxy has been making certain assumptions about human capabilities that are not entirely accurate. The liberation of the Admiral Thekvor of the Vorthak Imperial Fleet was experiencing something he had never felt before in his long military career: complete and total confusion. From the command bridge of his massive flagship, he watched his sensors display information. That simply could not be real. "Report!" he demanded, his insect-like voice clicking with authority that was rapidly being replaced by uncertainty. "Unknown contacts materializing throughout the battle zone, Admiral," his tactical officer reported, his own voice shaking. "Estimated count is over 300 vessels, but they're unlike anything in our databases." The ships that had appeared from nowhere were sleek and smooth, with no visible weapons or defensive systems. They looked almost organic, like living creatures swimming through space rather than mechanical constructs. Most disturbing of all, they moved with perfect coordination, as if they shared a single mind. "Size classification?" Thekvor asked, trying to maintain his composure. "Much smaller than our dreadnoughts, Admiral. Each vessel appears to be roughly frigate class. They pose no significant threat to our main battle fleet." Thekvor felt some of his confidence returning. The mysterious ships might be numerous, but size and firepower were what mattered in space combat. His own flagship carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon, and it was just one of over 50 super dreadnoughts in his fleet. Maintain defensive formation, he ordered. Prepare to engage unknown vessels if they approach within weapons range. That was when the first Vorthak ship simply disappeared. The mighty dreadnought VIS Conqueror, 5 kilometers of hardened battle armor and enough firepower to level a continent, was there one moment and gone the next. No explosion, no debris field, no distress signal. The massive vessel simply ceased to exist as if it had never been there at all. What happened to the Conqueror? Thekvor demanded. Unknown, Admiral. All sensor contact lost. The ship appears to have been eliminated, but there's no trace of weapons fire or explosive detonation. Before Thekvor could respond, another dreadnought vanished. Then another. The human ships were approaching his fleet like schools of predatory fish, and everywhere they went, Vorthak vessels simply stopped existing. All ships, evasive maneuvers! Thekvor ordered desperately. Return fire with all weapons! The Vorthak fleet opened fire with everything they had. Quantum disruptor beams, plasma cannons, and antimatter torpedoes filled space with deadly energy. The firepower they unleashed could have destroyed entire fleets of conventional warships. But the human vessels seemed to exist in a different reality. The devastating Vorthak weapons passed harmlessly through them as if they were made of empty space. Meanwhile, the mysterious human ships continued their approach, and more Vorthak vessels continued to vanish. Captain Oh Sung of the human vessel. Silent Dawn watched the enemy fleet's panicked response through his tactical displays. The collective tactical network linked his consciousness to hundreds of other human ships, allowing him to see the entire battle from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Target the command vessel, he communicated directly to the tactical network. Eliminate remaining escort ships first, then move on the flagship. The order was received and understood by every human ship instantly. 200 vessels adjusted their approach vectors with perfect precision, moving like the fingers of a giant hand closing around the Vorthak formation. The weapons they carried were based on principles that the Vorthak had never encountered. Instead of trying to destroy enemy ships with brute force, the human weapons manipulated matter at the subatomic level. They simply convinced the target vessel's atoms to stop holding together, causing the entire ship to dissolve into its component particles. Flagship isolation in 30 seconds, reported his tactical officer. Oh Sung nodded with satisfaction. The Silent Dawn and her sister ships were doing exactly what they had been designed to do: eliminate enemies completely and efficiently, leaving no trace that a battle had ever taken place. Admiral Thekvor watched in growing horror as his entire fleet disappeared around him. These were not ships being destroyed in conventional combat. They were being erased from existence by technology that his species could not understand or defend against. All remaining vessels, retreat to hyperspace, he ordered. Emergency withdrawal. Maximum speed! But it was too late. The human ships had surrounded his fleet completely, and none of his vessels could reach the minimum safe distance needed for hyperspace jumps. One by one, the pride of the Vorthak Imperial Navy simply ceased to exist. The same scene was playing out across the galaxy. Every Vorthak fleet that had participated in the Great Conquest found itself facing the same impossible enemy. Ships that had seemed unstoppable just hours before were now helpless against technology they had never imagined. Fleet Admiral Park. Sue coordinated the entire campaign from her hidden command station in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond the edge of Earth's solar system. Her displays showed real-time tactical information from thousands of human ships engaged in simultaneous operations across dozens of star systems. Status report from all operational sectors, she requested. Commander Yu Jin consulted his tactical displays before responding. Vorthak main fleet elements have been neutralized in sectors 7, 12, and 18. Remaining forces are attempting to retreat to defensive positions around their homeworld. Let them retreat, Park Sue decided calmly. We want them to gather in one place for the final operation. Begin Phase 2. Liberation of occupied Council worlds. The same human fleets that had eliminated the Vorthak invasion forces now appeared around the conquered Council planets. But instead of the molecular dissolution weapons that had been used against the enemy, they deployed entirely different technologies designed for rescue and reconstruction. On Gelrid Prime, Dr. Li Ye coordinated medical operations for the surviving, crystalline population. Her team used specially designed equipment to extract wounded Gelridians from the ruins of their crystal cities, while simultaneously neutralizing Vorthak occupation forces. "Atmospheric processors are online," reported her chief medical officer. "We're neutralizing the toxic compounds the Vorthak released into the planet's atmosphere. Environmental restoration should be complete within 6 hours." "What about civilian casualties?" "Much lower than expected. The Gelridians had better defensive shelters than we anticipated. Estimated survival rate is approximately 60% of the total population." Dr. Li Ye felt relief mixed with sadness. 60% survival meant that billions of crystalline beings had died in the Vorthak attack, but it also meant that billions more could be saved if the human rescue operations continued successfully. Similar operations were taking place throughout the galaxy. On the aquatic worlds of the Narration Confederation, human ships used advanced cooling systems to restore the boiled oceans to habitable temperatures. Specialized medical teams worked around the clock to treat survivors of thermal bomb attacks. Quilnari presented a more complex challenge, since their gaseous forms had been dispersed by Vorthak energy weapons. Human scientists deployed quantum containment fields to recollect the scattered consciousness patterns and restore them to coherent form. "Quilnari restoration proceeding ahead of schedule," reported the science team leader. "We've successfully reconstituted approximately 40% of the dispersed population. The process is delicate, but we're getting better at it." Even the proud Thexan Empire, whose warriors had died fighting to the last ship, found themselves receiving aid from the species they had mocked. Human medical teams treated wounded Thexan survivors with the same care and skill they showed to all other species. The rescued aliens watched in amazement as human technology accomplished things they had believed impossible. Planets were restored. Populations were healed, and entire civilizations were brought back from the brink of extinction. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. On Nexus Prime, the surviving council representatives gathered to witness reports from the liberation operations. They watched in silence as human ships systematically eliminated every Vorthak presence from council space with ruthless efficiency. "How is this possible?" asked the Gelridian representative, her crystal form flickering with confusion. "Human technology was supposed to be primitive. Your ships were outdated and weak." Ambassador Kang Day remained in his usual quiet demeanor. But there was something different about his expression now. The other species were finally ready to listen, and he was finally ready to speak openly. "The ships you saw were outdated and weak," he confirmed. "Those were the vessels we allowed you to see. Our actual military capabilities have been classified for security reasons." "But why hide your true strength?" demanded a Thexan officer. "Why pretend to be weak when you could have demanded respect?" "Because," Kang Day replied calmly, "strong species attract attention and make enemies. Weak species are ignored and underestimated. It is much easier to gather intelligence and prepare defenses when nobody considers you a threat." The alien representatives began to understand the magnitude of what had happened. For years, they had dismissed humanity as backward and irrelevant, while the humans quietly observed, learned, and prepared. Every council meeting, every casual conversation, every display of alien technology had been carefully studied and analyzed. "You've been watching us," whispered the Narration.